Throwdown Nation, welcome aboard for yet another episode of the Throwdown with Matt. Tonight is episode 14, and it is my pleasure to have with me from out of the great state of Colorado, Mr. Damian Malice. I have seen Damian wrestle recently at the Phoenix Wrestling Experience or PWE show out in Augusta, Georgia. And he definitely impressed both me and my son. Damian, how are you doing, sir?
Doing well. How are you today?
Man, I cannot complain. It's been another beautiful but hot day here in Georgia. And it's sun's starting to go down. It's cooling down outside. You can't ask for much more than that.
It's good to hear.
Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and get into the matters at hand here, and we'll start with the first and most obvious question, Damian, and that is, how long have you been wrestling?
I'm going on my 7th year now, professional wrestling wise. Started way back when under Big Guns Justin Andrews and and Hard Knocks Jimbo Lucas out here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And yeah, they really took me under their wing and went around everywhere first year and really started to find my stride now.
Nice. Well, I told you that over the course of this, we're going to be playing the speed round game where basically I'm going to name a name and you just say the first thoughts that pop into your head. And
Okay.
the first speed round is going to be Tommy Dreamer.
Hardcore legend.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Tommy Dreamer was actually, ECW got started about the same time that I finished college, and Tommy Dreamer was one of I guess my first real ECW favorites, and I've always had a soft spot in my heart for that guy. So at what point in your life did you have you been a fan all your life, or was there a point in your life where you knew you wanted to try to make a go of this?
Oh, well, I mean, shoot, back when I was really, really young, the only reason I ever stepped onto an amateur wrestling mat was because of professional wrestling. Showed my parents, thought it was actually going to be what I was watching on TV. Showed up, it wasn't, but I still got to throw around people, so I liked it. And stuck with that all the way up through college, and then had a really bad injury that kind of took my college career away and everything like that. And then my late sister, rest in peace, her husband is the person that actually got me back into professional wrestling after college and everything of that sort. And then after watching it for a little while, I was like, I think I could do this, but really didn't have anywhere to start training in Indiana. Didn't know anywhere to start training in Indiana, so I had to wait really until I came out here to Colorado. And then after about a year of being out in Colorado is when I finally got people to train me, start training, and then after a few months started working around here.
Gotcha. So away from wrestling, Damian, what are some of your other hobbies and interests?
Oh, shoot. Well, living in Colorado, I feel like you have to love the outdoors. And if you don't, it's a waste. We live in one of, if not the most beautiful states in the country. So anything outdoors, I might not look it, but I love to fish. But also a huge pop culture nerd. Anything of that sort, anything from Star Wars to anime, I absolutely adore and love. But yeah, really, I dabble in just a little bit of everything.
Got you. Speed round. Will Ospreay.
One of the most athletic individuals to ever step in the ring.
Absolutely. Yeah. I saw his hour-long match recently with MJF, and both of those guys actually really impressed me in terms of the in-ring work. Both
Hmm.
guys really left it in there.
Oh, absolutely.
That was a really great match. So let's see here. So is wrestling anything approaching a full-time thing for you, or do you have a quote day job?
Trying to get it there. I feel like I'm getting pretty close, but I do have a day job right now. I work at a gym, so
That's cool.
every day in there.
Well, at least it's a day job that's at least tangentially related to your overall goal.
Absolutely,
So
100%.
I mean you can't really ask for much more than that.
Oh no, can't knock it. And plus a free gym membership. I mean, who can beat that?
Exactly. Um, so you said your hometown is actually in Indiana. Um,
Correct.
what is your favorite thing about your hometown?
Oh well, I mean, there's not much that I really like about my hometown besides my family still being there, family and friends. But I mean, it was a weird place to grow up, especially for me, who is I'm not a straight man, or not a straight brown guy, and growing up in small town Indiana was a little strange to say the least. Wasn't able to come out until I actually came out to Colorado, stuff of that sort. And yeah, so the only thing I would say that's really left for me in Indiana is family and friends.
Got you. Um, so speed round, Scott Hall.
Ayo.
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
he had so many great versions of himself that I mean, shoot, it's just like all of them came through my head at once. It's hard to narrow it down to one.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he was very good at reinventing himself, yet, keeping a lot of the core mannerisms and the core stuff
Mm-hmm.
intact, but evolving the character. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I will completely agree with you there. So they say that the best wrestling personas are usually yourself turned up to 11. So tell me about in-ring Damian Malice and compare and contrast him with everyday you. Is it what
Well,
is it
to
what
be
you
honest, there
is
is.
I was going to
What you
say
see
is
is
it
what you
what
get.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I will say I'm a little more reserved around people I don't know, especially in day to day life, everything like that. But if you do know me, by God, it's hard to get me to shut up. I mean, shoot, you saw me at the show. Like that is me in my element, 100% through and through. And I just turn it down just a little bit for my day to day, but that's it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was in one of my earlier live streams, I had actually talked with Drew Adler, and he said that really he said the main difference is when he walks out to the ring, he drops his filter, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but
I mean,
yeah,
essentially, that's what it is. I let the intrusive thoughts win once I get out there because I can,
yeah,
especially
yeah,
being a bad guy.
yeah. So that's actually a good segue to my next question. I think I know the answer, but do you have a preference between working heel or working babyface?
I mean, I really don't have a preference to be honest. I love working heel, but I have a couple of places that really, really love me as a babyface, and I mean, it's strange to go like back and forth sometimes, but like I mean, I'm pretty indifferent as long as whatever the promoter wants. It's all up to them, anyways.
Yeah, pretty much. So, if you can remember back this far, tell us about your very first match. What was it like? How did it go? Spill the details.
Well, my very first match was, well, the very first show I worked was for a company known as Colorado Springs Wrestling. Way back in the day, I walk in just to do ring help, pay my dues, everything of that sort. And then my trainer looks at me and says, "Think you ready?" I was like, "Ready for what?" And I got thrown into a battle royal where if you won it, you were inserted into the main event for the heavyweight title at that time. Won the battle royal, everything like that. My trainer and Bruce Rogers was the guy's name, were the two people in the match. So these two massive, massive men to my little 5'7", 160-pound self at that time. And I just got tossed around. I was fodder. I ended up taking the finish like 5 or 6 times because there was a little miscue from the ref, everything like that. But it was fun. But man, I'll never forget that. Taking like 6 diamond cutters in a row.
So now that you've told us about your first match, now I'd like to hear about your favorite match that you've been a part of.
Favorite match that I've been a part of?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's kind of a toughie. It would probably have to be when I made my comeback after my really, really big TBI. And that's for a few reasons. Not only was it me coming back, being healthy and everything of that sort, it was a resurgence for me. And what I mean by that too is like during the time of that injury and everything of that sort, I was not a great person, drugs and alcohol, party lifestyle, everything of that sort. And during the time of that concussion is when I started to gain my sobriety back. And so I really looked at that match as my like reclaiming everything, like reclaiming my sobriety, reclaiming my character, reclaiming my life. And like, so that's the one that really, really sticks with me. It wasn't for anything important or anything like that. It was just a one-off match. Welcome back. And, but it really, really sticks in my head because that's when I really, really started to not only fall in love with professional wrestling again, but fall in love with myself again.
And that is so important because as you know, we can all be our own worst enemy.
Oh, 100%. I am the king of self-sabotage.
So if you can narrow it down to 1 or 2 little anecdotes, what have been some of the most interesting or unusual experiences that you've had in wrestling?
Well, this past weekend, I had one of the craziest happenings happen in a match. It was, there was a guy that wanted to get involved, and he was special needs. He just wanted to chop somebody. I was like, absolutely, he can chop me. I don't care, by all means. So he goes to give me the chop, and he gives me a forearm to the jaw. And then, like, fast forward a little bit, he ended up hitting me a couple more times. And then as I'm in the ring, like selling in the corner, like sitting there and acting like I'm hurt, I feel a hand reach through the ropes, and it's him, and he grabs me by the jugular and starts trying to pull on my neck and pull it out. And so I had to grab his wrist and like get him away from the ring. But yeah, that was wild, to say the least.
No doubt. And that probably answers my next question, which was going to be, what has been your strangest encounter with a fan?
That was definitely the strangest. Well, I definitely have some strange encounters in my inbox daily. Oh my goodness. But that was probably the strangest encounter that I've had with fans so far, for sure.
No doubt. That's wild, man. So, speed round. Ted DiBiase.
Workhorse.
Yeah. Yeah, he's somebody I remember watching as a kid. Um, I remember seeing him in the UWF and Mid South Wrestling out of Memphis, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, he was a lot younger back then, obviously,
Yeah.
but yeah, I
Yeah, you're
mean,
really dating yourself dropping those names. Holy cow.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, I started watching wrestling right around 1980, and you know, and here I am.
That's awesome,
So
though. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. Like I said before we went live, I've seen a lot in 40 some odd years of watching this stuff.
Yeah, know a
So
thing or two. Seen a thing or two.
yeah, yeah. So in terms of your in-ring work and your promos, who would you say are some of your influences? And this can be wrestlers, this can be pop culture, you know, because I'm finding a lot of wrestlers are taking influence beyond the ring.
Oh yeah. Oh shoot. My main wrestling influence is I tell everybody I'm trying to be the Rick Rude of the social media era. Like that's what I'm
Yeah.
really trying to nail. But for my promos, if you want to, in all honesty, my main influence for them is James Woods' Hades from Disney's Hercules. That's why I'm always drinking like a martini, or I'm sober, but like, so it's not a martini, but that's why I always have like gummy worms in a martini glass or whatever, is literally because of that one scene in Hercules where he's drinking a martini and he has the worm that he's stirring around in it, stuff of that sort.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
So do you have an all-time favorite match as a fan?
Yes.
A match that you can go back and watch time and time again, and it doesn't get old, and you always glean something new from it. It sounds like you do.
Oh, I swear, I probably at least once or twice a month watch Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar for the IWGP Championship from back in,
Mhm.
like, I think it was 2008 or something like that. But when Kurt Angle, who is my favorite wrestler of all time, and also I hate saying it, but during that TNA era where he wasn't that healthy, was probably the greatest wrestler of all time. Period. But like that, he was an animal, absolute animal, could not be stopped. And I always, like, now as a worker watching, I love watching that match and comparing it to their American styles because it's completely different.
Mhm. Oh, it is.
And that's something you have to learn, to wrestle different styles for different places. Like, I mean, the American style, there's the lucha style, then there's, you know, the UK, then we have the Japanese strong style, everything of that sort, and the
Mhm.
New Japan style that's coming about. That's really, really fast paced. And so, like, you have to learn how to work at these different work rates. And I always find that super interesting because, I mean, both of those guys, you knew, in, like, when they were in the WWE, everything like that they could work, that they could go. But watching them go over to Japan and put it all out there like they never have before in the States was just absolutely mind blowing to me, and I can never get over it.
Yeah, I'm a huge Kurt Angle fan myself. You know, uh, if for no other reason than, you know, back in his amateur wrestling days, the guy won a gold medal with a broken neck. I mean,
Yeah,
that still
absolutely.
just
He'll never
blows
he'll
my
never let
mind.
anybody forget that.
No, no, I mean, and that was right here, the '96 Olympics, right here in Atlanta. You know,
Hmm.
so I mean, that's just, but yeah, that just blows my mind that the guy did that
Yeah,
with a broken neck. That's
yeah, and I
that's
mean, like I said, Kurt Angle is. I mean, he's been my role model for my entire wrestling career, from amateur all the way through. I mean, he's been a huge influence on me throughout my entire life, hands down.
Gotcha. So if you could only be one, would you rather be great in the ring or great on the mic?
I feel like these days being greater on the mic is more important than being greater in the ring. And what I mean by that is, these days, especially with these bigger companies, like they can teach you how to wrestle. I mean, that's what they do. They bring people in and they will teach you how to wrestle like they want you to.
Right.
The WWE style for their television, everything of that sort. But if you already know how to talk on a microphone, you can't. Yeah, that's something that you can't really teach because those are like mental blocks that somebody has to get over for themselves. And so, if me as a trainer, if I look at a guy who is very, very athletic, everything like that. I mean, okay, perfect example is Dean Malenko compared to Enzo Amore. Dean Malenko, absolute technician, probably one of the best wrestlers of all time, inside the ring.
Yeah.
Had the personality of a wet paper bag. Could not really talk. I mean, he was bland. And I hate saying that because he's another huge influence on me. But then you have someone like Enzo Amore who is dog doo-doo, but at the same point in time, his mic skills were above, I mean, leaps and bounds above most of the roster at that time. So that's why he got all those opportunities that he did, was basically on his mic skills alone. And then they were teaching him how to wrestle along the way.
Right. Yeah, the people that are great on the mic and great in the ring are few and far between. And
absolutely.
And if you happen,
and it takes time. It takes time. No one's great right off the bat at either of those things. No one's great in the ring right away. No one's great on the mic right away. I mean, yeah, there's people that are good, but to be really, really great takes time. So, I mean, it's something that just has to come with getting over it and doing it.
Yeah, and a lot of reps. But
yes,
I mean, but the rare person who is great in both aspects can essentially write their own ticket. I mean,
they can if they get in front of the right people. It's all about who you know these days.
Right. It is. And it's definitely a cutthroat business in those terms, but
it is. But I mean, I feel like I wouldn't say it's a cutthroat business. Yes, it is. But like, it's more of a business, at least in my experience, in my 7 years of, everybody is happy to see you do well, but never do better than them.
Right.
That's when that's when all of a sudden it's bad for you. But like, I want to see you do well, but never better than me. That's what this business really is. It really sucks. It really does.
Right. I mean, everybody is their own ceiling, or no. Yeah. They view everybody views themselves as the ceiling for everybody else. Yeah.
Yes. Essentially. Yeah. And I mean, everybody's worried about the spot being taken or something of that sort, so they want to keep somebody beneath them. But I mean, like, if everybody elevates everyone, all of a sudden, I mean, professional wrestling is getting popular again for the first time in 20 years. So at this point, as a professional wrestler, we need to be doing everything in our power to get all the eyes on our product that we can. Yep. The more eyes that are on professional wrestling, the more professional wrestling gets paid as a whole. But also, that's when like, us as professional wrestlers really need to start doing a better job of policing the business. And what I mean by that is we need to start making sure that we've done a good job of running the crappy people out. So we need to make sure that we keep them out and don't let them back in. Like the Predators, everything like that, we need to make sure that they stay out of professional wrestling because, I mean, just like anything in show business, it can be a scummy business.
Yep. Absolutely. So, speed round. The Great Muta.
One of the first matches I ever watched.
Really?
Yeah.
Who was he
I
wrestling?
couldn't even remember.
Oh,
I can't even remember who he was wrestling. I can't off the top of my head, but I remember I was probably about like, I think I was probably 4 or 5 years old, something like that.
Mhm.
But core memory of him, holy cow.
Yeah. I remember his feud with Sting back in the late '80s was just off the chain. That was, because both of those guys were really kind of in their prime right then, and they put on some absolute bangers. So, and this can be present day or past. Who would be a dream opponent for Damian Malice? Who would you love to work?
The person that I would love to work most right now, present day for sure, is GCW's Epi. He's actually from Georgia, but he is the world's, he's probably the world's biggest queer wrestler right now, and he's a really good, he's a friend of mine and someone that I just really, really look up to and respect. I mean, he's someone that's traveling the world right now. I mean, he wrestles in Japan. He has his own shows under GCW. He's doing it all, and he's been a huge advocate for the LGBTQ community as well. So I would really love to get the chance to wrestle him, especially during Pride Month. That would be absolutely fantastic.
Okay. So, over the course of your career so far, have you had a chance to meet any of your wrestling heroes?
I have not really. I mean, well, I did get to work with Buff Bagwell, and he is one of my father's favorite wrestlers of all time, and that was really, 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 really cool. Being able to get in the ring with him, learn from him, actually let him critique me and pick his brain at the same time for the night was absolutely stellar.
So, you've been in the business long enough that I'm sure this applies. What hurts right now?
Actually, nothing. I
Oh,
do
that's
daily.
good.
I work out daily. I have a therapy pool at work. I have the sauna, steam room, everything like that. I do everything in my power to take care of my body and try to keep my longevity for as long as possible. And that's something that I mean, more wrestlers. If you want to make it, or at least extend your career in this business, you need to start taking the extra steps outside of training, outside of the ring. Get in the gym. It doesn't even have to be a gym. You could be working out at home, but you have to be doing this stuff to actually, make it all work.
Gotcha. So, overall, what would you say your thoughts on the current state of the wrestling business are?
We are like I said earlier, we are in a resurgence. I mean, we are starting to become very, 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 very popular again. And when we at that same point in time, that means there's going to be a giant resurgence of people wanting to do it. And I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that not everyone can wrestle. It's more or less that we just need to make sure that we're letting those into the business that A, appreciate it, B, are good people, and C, aren't going to do anything to hurt what you're trying to build, more or less.
Right.
And and it's just really like we have to do a better job of vetting and policing, and just not letting everyone come in and everyone come into the business and try to do things. It's something like, for example, every year around tax return season, you'll start seeing people or random companies that you've never heard of before start popping up. and it's someone that got their tax return, bought a ring, wants to run a show, runs one, and then doesn't do anything ever again because they completely lost their shirt. And I mean, but during those shows too, they don't pay anybody off, anything like that, and do some really carny things. So therefore, like, we need to make sure that we're keeping those type of people out.
Gotcha.
Because all it does is cheapen professional wrestling as a whole.
Gotcha. Well, you're still a comparatively young guy, but if you could give, knowing everything you know now, if you could give any advice to your younger self, what would it be?
It would be probably the biggest piece of advice I would give myself is to just focus more on your goals and not what everybody else was doing and seemed fun at the time, more or less. I mean, staying away from the alcohol, the drugs, the partying scene, everything of that sort. I mean, I just think all the time of where I would be right now if I wasn't a part of all of that, and it really, really blows my mind. Like what I've been able to do, comparatively in like a year and a half to that, is just so. I mean, and everybody plays, hindsight, everything like that, devil's advocate, but that's definitely what I would go back and tell myself. Stay away from the drugs, stay away from the alcohol, stay away from all that stuff, and focus on your goals and dreams.
Gotcha. Well, things happen for a reason, and at least you've made it through that storm and you're on the other side of it. So
absolutely, 100%.
And you're a better human being for it.
Very much so.
So do you have any advice for any young people that might be watching this that are looking to try to break into the business?
First piece of advice: go to a school and get trained. Don't say you can watch on YouTube and learn. Don't just try to start to get yourself booked places. Go and train, learn and get your knowledge, pay your dues. And the biggest thing is get actual gear. Get real gear. It doesn't have to be custom right off the bat or anything like that, because it takes time to figure out exactly what you want your look to be, everything of that sort. But do not wrestle in basketball shorts and a t-shirt. Please. Please, please, please. This is professional wrestling. Look like a professional. If you want to be taken as a professional, you should be doing this, period.
Right. Absolutely. So, you've been doing this for about 7 years. So how, from your perspective, wrestling where you've been wrestling and such, how much of an impact did the pandemic have?
Well, I wasn't during the pandemic is when I had my son. And so I actually moved back to Indiana during that, like for 8 months. Like we had him and we were there for a little while and then came back. But so for that time, I wasn't out in Colorado, but I know that they were still running shows here and everything of that sort. It was just no audience, filmed in the gym, stuff like that, because Primo's Premier Pro Wrestling, one of the companies I wrestle for in Denver, they actually run on Triller and Fight TV. Mm-hmm. So they post all their shows on there and people can buy them pay-per-view. So they were still doing that and running those shows throughout the pandemic and everything of that sort.
Gotcha. So what has been your low point in the business?
Well, my lowest point in the business definitely had to be, around my concussion and everything like that, because that's when I felt like I was starting to really, really gain some momentum. And then someone who I even told the promoter that I didn't feel safe in there with them, anything like that. But the promoter still said, oh, it's fine. And I was a professional and said, okay. And then got hurt. That really, really messed me up. Because, I mean, it messed me up because I was trusting these people and everything of that sort. And really just, I mean, being put on the shelf for 6 months with a traumatic brain injury just really puts a lot of things in perspective, because I couldn't make complete sentences for a couple of weeks. My memory was super spotty. I was absolutely terrified that it was going to be something more. And it just made me very, very angry and put me in a very, very dark place, because I was like, I can't believe that the people that I trusted and then voiced my concerns to put me in this position.
Yeah. I can only imagine, anger and betrayal and, a whole gambit of emotions, I'm sure.
Absolutely. A huge whirlwind. And and that was at the height of my usage too. So that was just adding to it, and it was all bad, no good.
Yeah. And I know concussions are definitely a tricky thing. Before doing what I'm doing currently, I used to be a paramedic, and head injuries were definitely something that they heavily trained us on. And it's they're nothing to mess with. And it was interesting. I'm a big fan of Adam Cole. And it was interesting, he was out for the better part of a year after a concussion, and and he's been kind of snake bit these last few years. He had the concussion, and then he came back from that and almost immediately broke his leg, and he's been out from that ever since. But yeah, I mean, different people seem to recover at different rates from concussions, and it's interesting watching all of that happen, and knowing that essentially the same mechanical process to the brain can have such wildly divergent results. It's
absolutely.
Yeah, it's so was that your first concussion, or had you had previous ones?
Shoot. Lord knows how many I've had. I mean, like I said, I've been wrestling since like 3-4 years old. I played football, everything like that. Right. I was a 3-sport athlete through high school and wrestled in college. I've had more concussions than I know about. That's definitely for sure, 100%, because I was playing football in high school before like really the concussion protocols. That I remember them starting to come into place when I was in high school. Yeah. So and they were still super relaxed because everybody thought that a concussion was basically fake. So I don't know how many I have left in me. All I know is that the doctor told me that like the next big one might be it. So
been
very, very careful as of late.
Oh, I'm sure. But yeah, the reason I asked that is, they also tend to be kind of a cumulative thing. If you've had a number of them over the years, each one tends to sort of build on the damage.
Yeah, they get worse and worse.
Yeah. So do you have a favorite move, something you just really enjoy doing? And on the flip side of that, do you have a move that you won't do or you prefer not to do?
One of my favorite moves to do is Hurricane Shane Helms, one of his old signatures, Nightmare on Helm Street. It's something that my trainer, Big Guns, would do, and then when he stopped working he kind of took a step back from the ring and started to focus more on commentary and stuff like that. I kind of yoinked that from him. But it's one of my favorite moves to pull out of nowhere, and I will never do a vertebreaker. Never, ever. That move is terrifying to me in every single way, shape, or form. And yeah, nothing about it looks safe to me. I know Cody Rhodes pulled one out not too long ago, and everybody was like, "Oh my goodness!" But yeah, no.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I have mentioned that to other guests as a move. I'm not a wrestler, but that move terrifies me every time I see somebody do it. And I can't imagine either being on the giving or receiving end. Because if you're on the giving end, you can't see if your partner is positioned himself properly. You've just got
Yep.
to hope he has. And,
Mm-hmm.
and on the receiving end, yeah, I just think
Yeah.
that's
There's
a
so much
move.
room for error there.
Yeah, that's a move that should just be permanently mothballed, in my opinion. But
I mean,
um,
it was, or it has been at least on TV for the longest time until Cody broke it out. But
yeah,
I mean, that move was on the ban list for WWE for quite some time.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, it's funny that you mentioned Shane Helms because he was my next guy on Speed Round.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah, so Shane Helms,
charismatic. One of
yeah,
my favorite people to watch. He was the first person that really like got him, or like that I remember as a child watching and being like he got himself over. I
yeah,
mean, he made himself larger than life. The crowd loved him. He was somebody that was supposed to be a joke that that took like basically took a crap sandwich and like polished it up and made something amazing out of it.
yeah. I have always felt like he has been underrated throughout his career.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Yep, yep, yep. So something else that I've done on all of these so far is I've let the current guest pose a question for the next guest. And
Hmm.
so my previous guest, who was actually last night, was a wrestler out of Indianapolis named Loud and Proud Logan Myers. And
Logan Myers.
yeah, he's out of, like I
I
said, Indianapolis.
I feel like I've heard that. I mean, I might know him obviously from the Indiana connection, but who knows?
Gotcha. But the question that he posed is, what is one thing that you feel you can do in the ring to make any situation better?
Crowd work. I mean, shoot, that's one thing that is lost a lot these days. Is wrestlers aren't working for the crowd that much anymore. They're working for themselves, for social media, and for the boys in the back. Um, a lot of people won't listen to the crowd, and all it takes is slowing down. And it's also something that I teach. It's all about the in between. What happens in between the moves? No one cares about your moves if they don't care about you. And how do you get them to care about you is actually get them involved. That's why, I mean, when you saw me at PWE, after like in between every move, I'd be going and talking to somebody or something like
Right.
that. Like I'll roll out of the ring and sit in the crowd and get a drink with the crowd or something like, I'll walk through it. I will be doing everything in my power to keep the crowd involved in my match 100% at all times. I mean, if there's vendors there, I will go. Like, I mean, shoot, for Colorado Wrestling Connection, the company that I am the Hillside Heritage Champion for, it's the belt that I bring out to, or the title that I bring out to Georgia a lot. We have vendors and stuff that'll come and set up their booths, and I will roll out in the middle of the match and literally go shop just to get
That's cool.
them involved, the crowd involved, and also it drives the crowd to their booths and they buy stuff.
Yeah.
So it's all about getting everybody involved and feel like they're a part of it, because that all that does is help them suspend that belief a little more, because everybody knows what we're doing isn't real. It's predetermined, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But our job is to get them so involved and suspend that belief and and keep that illusion alive. So like, yeah, they might know that like what is happening is predetermined, but they are so into it at the moment that they do not care.
Right.
They are so into what's happening that they actually are getting emotional about the bad guy beating up the good guy. Like, that's when you're doing professional wrestling correctly. And these days, it's just mostly like, oh, hey, I'm gonna do this 6 sequence out there, have a bunch of high spots so it looks really good on TikTok. Or, oh, hey, I'm gonna do this really, really big move for the boys in the back and pop all of them, and they know what it is, but it's not gonna register with the crowd at all. Like, I cannot stand that. It's so lost on me because it's like, guys, these are the people that give us their money. Like, I'm not wrestling for you. I love you. You're my friend, but I'm not wrestling for you. You're not the person that's going to buy my merch. You're not the person that's going to, tell their friends about me. You're not the person that's going to bring Tom, Dick, and Harry to the next one. Like, I'm wrestling for the crowd. I'm wrestling for that little boy. I'm wrestling for the middle-aged woman. I'm wrestling for everybody. I'm not wrestling for locker.
Right. And getting the fans invested is really where the magic happens. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's easier than people think. But people, like I said, they just are so worried about getting their moves in, getting the match the way that they have it in their head all the way 100%, that all the little things that really, really get yourself over as a character are lost in translation because you're worried about what's coming next. You're worried about this. You're worried about XYZ. And you're not thinking about, oh, hey, there's a little bit of downtime. Why don't I go and, as a bad guy, go and mess with the crowd a little bit? There's been this one fan the entire night that's just been screaming at you. Dial in on that fan. It doesn't even have to be the entire crowd. I usually pick out 2 or 3 people out of the crowd, and that's what I mess with for the match.
Yeah.
Something like that. It might be one person aside or something of that sort. But other than that, it's not like I'm working everybody, but working that one person works that entire side.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, since this is a series, do you have a question that you would like to pose to the next guest? And I can go ahead and tell you my next guest is going to be this coming Sunday evening at 7 p.m. I'm going to have a wrestler out of Toronto named Mr. Marvelous James Runyon. So
out of Toronto. Okay.
Do you have a question you would like to pose?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me think about it.
Okay.
Oh boy, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Well, if you can't think of anything at the moment, you can always message me later.
Okay. Yeah. Let me think about that for sure.
Got you. Well, we're pretty much at the end of things now. So do you have any upcoming shows or anything at all that you would like to hype?
Yeah. Well, here, August 18th, Primo's Premiere for Wrestling at the Roxy in Denver. Hopefully finally get my chance at the 303 title. It's Primo's mid card. Other than that, I have Battleground Pro Wrestling at the end of the month, August 30th, here in Colorado Springs. They're making their debut at Sunshine Studios Live. Then in September, in Greeley again for Battleground Pro Wrestling. And also going out to Washington to make my debut out there in September for Northwest Pro.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So you're definitely becoming well-traveled with all of this. So
yes, the main goal of this year has been all over the country. Next year, it's all over the world.
Well, thinking big is the only way to get big.
Well, so far, I've manifested all this so far. So if I keep believing it, I feel like it's going to happen more than anything else.
Awesome. Well, Damian, thank you for your time. This has been absolutely terrific. I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this with me.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you for having me. It was an absolute pleasure, and I'll be happy to be back anytime you want me.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, consider yourself as having a standing invitation. If you've got additional things you want to come talk about, you're always more than welcome. You're part of the Throwdown family now. So,
Well, thank you for that. Thank you.
and for those of you that have been watching this live, thank you. For those of you that'll be watching this on replays or anything like that, thank you for that as well. If you like what we've got going here, continue to spread the word. This thing is really taking on a life of its own, and I'm just excited to be along for the ride and watching this whole thing grow and go in unexpected directions. So anyway, I will be back Sunday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern with Mr. Marvelous James Runyon out of Toronto. And until then, everybody have a wonderful rest of your night and a safe rest of your week and a great weekend.